picking up exactly where we left last. Cosmology of the Kojiki and the Nihon Shoki is confused. This is part in due to the fact that there's a lack of continuity between the texts. But there is also very little description in either work about what exactly is located where. The mortal realm, Ashihara no Nakatsukuni, is clearly identified with the archipelago of Japan. Fortunately, the rest of the real world does not seem to exist around the islands. What we have instead are several countries, the Kuni. The same word used for both province and land in ancient times. These countries are joined to Ashihara and Natsukuni in certain places, but also coexist within the fantastic space, such as the bottom of the sea. Most important of these other realms are Takamagahara, the high plane of heaven. This is the place where the Amatsukumi, specifically of Amatsuteru, or Amaterasu, and her court. It is sometimes identified with the sky. However, it is not the same as Tsukuyomi's domain of night, which interestingly lacks the name. Takamagahara is described solely as being above Ashihara no Nakatsukuni. Several different figures, included Izanagi and Izanami, and all of Amaterasu's envoys to the Kunisukami, used a contraption known as the Floating Bridge of Heaven, Amano Ukahashi, to reach the mortal realm. The bridge's function is never described. In more recent times, it's been pictured as everything from a regular bridge to a magical elevator. When Izanami dies, she goes to the realm of Yomi. Yomi is physically reachable from Ashihara no Natsukuni. Although the text never specifies exactly where the entrance, the slope of Yomi, is located. The name uses the characters for sulfur springs, borrowing from a Chinese term for a volcanic hellscape. The pronunciation, Yomi, is not Chinese and is probably a name native to Japan. Yomi is home to hags, old women beyond marriageable age, and thunder deities who cause destruction. The land is rarely referenced at all outside of ancient chronicles, whether in medieval stories or early modern folklore. Yomi is usually considered the same place as Susanoo's eventual home, Nino Katasu, or the Harden Route. Susanoo retires here after passing his rule over Ashihara no Nakatsukuni to Okidonushi. Strangely, nothing more is ever mentioned about it. The name is reminiscent of roots underground, and in an earlier scene, Susanoo explains his crying and longing to be with his mother, Izanami, who is currently in Yomi. The two facts have led scholars to link the two places, although there are problems with this attribution. The most notable of these is that Yomi is not underground, but near Katsu maybe. The final realm mentioned in the chronicle is the land of the sea god, Watasumi. It is usually considered to be on the ocean floor, but it also has gardens, rice-filled palaces, and other features of a terrestrial world. This realm appears to be originally assigned to Susanoo before his tearful abdication. Like Tsukuyomi's domain, it lacks a specific name. It is populated by kami, who double as the creatures of the sea, perhaps drawing from Chinese associations of dragons with water in the ocean. Where Yomi no Katsu may appear to be specific places reachable from mortal realm, the sea realm is, like Takamagahara, somewhere apart from and inaccessible to humans. To reach it requires the Take approval of its master, Watsasumi. After Okinanushi completes the creation, Amaterasu decides to take over the islands and unite Earth and Heaven under the Amatsukami. She chooses the eldest of the 5 sons she produced with Susanoo, Ame no Oshihomimi, to persuade Okinanushi to give up the rule of the Earth. Ame no Oshihomimi does not want the difficult job of pacifying the rest of gods of the earth. And refuses. In his place, Amaterasu decides to send the second of her sons, Ame no Hoi. Ame no Hoi dutifully descends to the mortal realm. He meets with Okinanushi, and becomes enamored with the Kinetsukami, refusing even to report back to Amaterasu for 3 years. Frustrated, Amaterasu sends a god known as Ame no Wakihiko to contact Okinanushi. Ame no Wakihiko too ends up siding with the Kinetsukami. Wakihiko too ends up siding with the Kinetsukami and marries one of Okinanushi's daughters. After another 8 years have passed, Amaterasu orders a pheasant to travel to Okinanushi's realm to find out why Ame no Wakihiko has not reported back. Ame no Wakihiko shoots the pheasant, but the arrow turns around and hits him as well, killing him. At this point, the Amatsukami convene an assembly to decide what to do. Eventually, it is resolved to make a less diplomatic effort. Amaterasu contacts Take Mikazukichi. Take Mikazuchi, a god of strength and storms, whose father was the blade used by Izanagi to kill the fire god. Kagutsuchi. Take Mikazuchi's mission to conquer Okinanushi's court by force. Take Mikazuchi travels down to the earth with several companions and parleys with Okinanushi on the coast of Izumo. Okinanushi offers with his own council of Kunitsukami, chief among his council. Okinanushi confers with his own council of Kunitsukami. Chief among his council is his son, Kotoshiro Nushi, the god of knowledge. Kotoshiro Nushi offers his father not to fight the Amatsukami, and after much deliberation, Okinanushi agrees. He accepts Amaterasu's demands and gives over rulership of the earth. In return for giving up rule of the archipelago, he insists on maintaining authority over the region's affairs of the Kami, and a great place in Izumo for a home. The origins of Izumo Shrine. That was the origins of the Izumo Shrine. The Amatsukami have officially won dominion over all of creation for Amaterasu. Now the task of ruling the mortal world must begin. For this, Amaterasu turns to her grandson, the oldest son of Ame no Oshihomimi. The grandson has many names, but most of them contain the element Ninigi, and it is by this name he is known today. Ninigi is, like his father, is a deity of rice cultivation. In addition to bearing Amaterasu's blood on his father's side, his mother is the daughter of Takamimushi, or Mimushi. One of the deities preceding Izanagi and Izanami. Ninigi, therefore, combines with himself both Amaterasu's solar rule and the older creative forces that underlie the universe. Ninigi gathers some of companions from among the gods who helped to pull Amaterasu out of the heavenly rock cave and goes down to earth. Before he leaves the high plane of heaven, he receives the imperial regalia from Amaterasu. The sword, Grasscutter, Kusanagi. The mirror with Amaterasu's image, and the jewel stands that lured her out from the heavenly rock cave. Upon arrival in the mortal realm, Ninagi's group is joined by Takamikazuchi. The group settles in Himuka, or sun-facing, modern Hyuga, in Miyazaki Prefecture. Yeah. Ninigi marries Konohana no Sakyobime, a flower goddess and the daughter of the mountain god birthed by Izanami. The marriage firmly binds one of the major lineages of the Kunitsukami into Amaterasu's line, joins the powers of nature to those of the sun. Takemikazuchi, thunder deity, but very different from the other thunder deities in the ancient chronicles, who appears as a servant of Izanami and a destructive force. Takemikazuchi, or Kazuchi, is a god of bravery and righteous battle. He's also a messenger who finally makes Amaterasu's claims on Shihara no Nakatsukani, known as the Kunikatsu. Takemikazuchi refuses to bend to the previous, refuses to bend like the previous messengers did, and later serves as one of Ninagi's counselors. He seems more like a god of war than of thunder. His war leader status and original importance, far from the imperial court, raises questions as to whether he too was once the central deity of a smaller kingdom or reign in ancient times. If so, this would mean that Takemikazuchi, who was also subsumed under Amaterasu as part of the new imperial order. Starting in the late medieval era, Takemikazuchi appears as a patron of martial arts, particularly swordsmanship. From this point onwards, he is also portrayed as a swordsman, typically stern but calm. Takemikazuchi's original shrine was Kashima Shrine in Kashima, Ibaraki Prefecture, north of Tokyo. He was later re-enshrined at several other locations in southern Honshu, most prominently the Kasuga Grand Shrine in Nara. Ninigi has many names in the ancient chronicles, but most of them end in the 3 syllables by which he is known today. As the heavenly grandson of Amaterasu, heir on earth, sent to rule the mortal realm in the name of Amatsukami. Ninagi's longer names contain words for ears of rice, and scholars think he was originally a god of agriculture. However, agriculture is usually the domain of local kami. Ninigi is more often worshipped as a god of rulership. As a mythical figure, he is more human than deity in some ways, and his most famous role is the ancestor of the imperial clan. Ninigi is not often portrayed in art, and images of him are even rare in the modern period. When he is pictured, it is usually as a young man in ancient Japanese clothing. These images surprisingly have very few distinguishing characteristics. Ninigi is worshipped at only a few shrines. The most important is the Kirishima Shrine in Kirishima, and the Nata Shrine in Satsuma Sendai, both in Kagoshima Prefecture, as well as Izumu Shrine in Takaoka Tamiya Prefecture. Ninigi and Konohana no Sakiyobime have several children. 2 of their sons are Hideri and Hawari, which are Bright Flame and Flickering Flame, respectively. Hideri is born first. In fact, Konohana no Sakiyobime announces that she is pregnant with him in the morning after her marriage to Ninigi. Ninigi is astounded at how fast this occurs, worried that she is actually bearing the child of a previous lover. Ninigi forces Konohana no Sahibime into a birthing hut and then sets it on fire. The flames spare the goddess who is telling the truth, and she is found amidst the ashes, unharmed, cradling a baby boy. Adeli's name reflects his birth in fire. Adeli becomes a famous hunter, using his knowledge of the mountains inherited from his mother and maternal grandfather to find game. Hawari, his younger brother, becomes an equally famous fisherman. One day, the two get into an argument when Hideki tries to prove that he can fish as well as his brother. Unfortunately, he can't, and even loses Hawari's special stone fishhook in the ocean. Hideki tries to give Hawari another fishhook, but Hawari claims that all things have their own kami. It would be like throwing one child away for another. Hideki then decides to dive into the sea to retrieve his brother's original fishhook. Hideki dives down to the ocean depths in search. Instead of the fishhook, the young god stumbles among a marvelous palace at the bottom of the sea. This is the home of Wata Susumi, the god of the oceans, who presumably inherits the realm after Susanoo abandons it. Hideki stays with Watasumi for several years. During his sojourn under the sea, he falls in love with Watasumi's daughter, Toyotoma Hime, a goddess of treasure. The two marry and then decide to return to the surface. Upon their return, Toyotoma Hime gives Hideki a magical jewel that controls the tides. He challenges Hawari once again and uses the jewel to catch more fish than his brother. Hawari acknowledges his defeat and that Hattori is better suited to the role. Hideki then inherits Ninigi's mandate over earthly realms of creation. Hideki's marriage brings yet another force, the power of the sea, into the nascent imperial line. Amaterasu's descendants not only have the mandate to rule over the islands of Japan and the surrounding seas, but have quite literally married into both the land and the water. No, he does not bring back the original fishhook, apparently. Toyotoma Hime becomes pregnant and prepares to give birth to her and Hideki's first child. She tells her husband that despite her pleasing form, she is still a child of the sea and must give birth alone in a secluded hut. She begs him not to look upon her when the time comes. Barely curious, Hideki sneaks into the hut and he is shocked when instead of his beloved wife, he sees an immense sea creature in the throes of labor. What exactly he saw differs between the texts with the Kojiki, claiming a shark and the Nihon Shoki a dragon. Toyotoma Hime gives birth to a boy, whom she names, fuck you, Japan. I'm gonna type it into your stream, Restless, so you can have a look at this without going to Discord. Okay, fuck you. Conformant feathers that thatched her magical birthing hut. Give me a moment. She gives the boy to Hideki, but tells her husband that she can never forgive him for his disrespect. She then leaves for the ocean forever. In her place, Toyotoma Hime sends her sister, Kamiyari Hime, the goddess of objects invested with sacred power to take care of. Motherfucker! Take care of him as he grows. Igea Fuku's. The boy bears with him the lineages of Amatsukami, the Kinetsukami, and the sea. Yeah, fuck you, Japan. Is unable to take up the mantle of emperor, the destiny of Amaterasu's descent. No version explains why, but it may be due to the promise that that was broken between his parents. I can explain why. Fuck his name. When he comes of age, Yugeo Fukieizu marries his aunt Tamayaori Hime, and finally, the lineage of the sea is bound to the rest without incident. They have 4 sons, the youngest of whom is best by known his 2-character imperial name, Jinmu, the god's weapon, the legendary first emperor of Japan. Watasumi, the god of the sea, makes surprisingly few appearances in the ancient chronicles. Of course, considering that Japan is made up of islands, kami of individual bodies of water have always had outsized local importance. Watasumi goes beyond that, however, overseeing the greatest body of water of all. Watasumi is actually a triple deity. His appearance as both three brothers born to Izanagi during his purification after visiting Yomi. The three brothers are Shokotsu Watasumi, crossing god of the seafloor. Sokotsu Susanao, or man of the bottom crossing. Nakatsu Watasumi, or crossing god of the sea middle. Uatsu Watasumi, or crossing god of the sea surface. Or man of the upper crossing. These three appear as a single god in all other myths concerning Watasumi. Watasumi is worshipped at many shrines across Japan. Most famous of these, Sumiyoshi Grand Shrine in Osaka. Sumiyoshi Shrine was originally a hut shrine complex right on the beach, just south of the ancient part of Naniwa. Today, the shrine is several kilometers inland due to land reclamation, but it's still a major tourist spot and the namesake of its city ward. Curiously, all three of Watasumi's competent gods are enshrined separately at Sumiyoshi. They are worshipped as identical smaller shrines placed next to one another alongside one for Empress Jingu, a figure about whom more will be said in the next chapter. Now, Jinmu, the first emperor. Jinmu is the figure whose transition between the world of the gods and the world of men. He takes his authority to rule from Amaterasu, the divine matriarch. He also contains all other strands of creation within his bloodline. From his great-grandmother, Jinmu has the power of the Kunitsukami and the dominion over the land. From his mother and grandmother, he has that of the sea. Unlike his father, he is not the offspring of a broken promise. Jinmu therefore represents the unity of forces needed to bring a lasting peace to the archipelago. He also represents the first character in the myths who is as much man as he is god. The first emperor does not have a direct connection to the high plane of heaven except through his ancestral lineage. Everything he does is focused solely and completely on mortal concerns, such as control over territory or the defeat of local enemies. The name Jinmu is a Chinese-style name made up of two characters. This is a style of imperial names that became popular for rulers in the 8th century, which remains the official format today. In the chronicles, however, he is referenced by his by his native royal name, Kamu Yamato Ibarabiko, or Brave Prince of Iware in Yamato, blessed by the gods. This impressively long name lists the village in which he will eventually build his palace. Iware in modern Sakurai Nara Prefecture. The young prince is the fourth of four sons, born to Ugaya Fukizeru, or Fukiyarasu, and Tamayora Hime. He grows up in Himka on the southeastern coast of Kyushu. He has three older brothers. Isuse, Inai, and Mikeri. Only Itsue, the eldest, the oldest, figures prominently in any narrative. Inai and Mikeri barely appear in the Kojiki, whereas the Nihon Shoki, they both vanish on errands. Inai travels to the bottom of the sea as a shark god, and Mikarai goes to search of Tokyo, the land of eternal life. Itsue, however, is very close to his younger brother and remains by Jinmu's side. Igaya
Blurt it out.
and Tamiya.
I'm not certain someone you wouldn't have a complaint.
Igaya, Fukiezu, and Tamiyori Hime both die when their sons are in their 40s. Soon afterwards, Jinmu stumbles upon a man with a tail while hunting. This man is Shiotsuchi, a Kunitsukami, and he swears allegiance to the young prince. Shiotsuchi has a dream that Amaterasu and Take Mikazuchi spoke to him. They ordered him to tell the children of Ugaya Fukizeru and Jinmu in particular to travel north. There, deep in central Honshu, they will find Yamato, a valley ringed by mountains and blessed by rivers. Amaterasu desires for Yamato to become the center of the mortal realm. The way forward is filled with, as yet unappeased Kunitsukami. It will be up to Jinmu and Itsue to quell them. Shiotsuchi, whose name is associated with the tides, joins Jinmu, a master shipbuilder, to help their prince further. Amaterasu sends one of other gods, Yatagarasu, or eight-legged crow. Yatagarasu leads the way north, heralding the arrival of the heavenly descendant and their nascent core. Jinmu and Itsue travel up the coast, stopping at various places. The exact list is different between the chronicles. At each stop, they find themselves opposed by the Tsuchigoma, or the Earth Spiders. These are long-armed and long-legged Kunitsukami who resent the Amatsukami rule of the land. Some Tsuchigumu also end up joining Jinmu and Itsue army. Others fight back, but they are always conquered. In time, the two princes and their forces reach Naniwa, the port that became the modern city of Osaka. Naniwa is the closest approach to Yamato by sea. As the princes try to land their boat, Nagatsune Biko, one of the Tsuchigumo lords of Yamato, engages with them in a vicious battle. During the battle, Itsue is struck by a powerful whistling arrow. Jinmu sounds a retreat and his forces leave the field of battle.
Okay, I'm near the end of this.
He realizes that they have been facing east into the sun. Instead, they should have been fighting with Amaterasu at their backs. Not doing that has caused their defeat. Itsue dies of his wounds, cursing his fate with his last breath. Jinmu is left with as the last heir of the sun. He gathers up his army and sails south around the Kii Peninsula to land Kumano, now the city of Shingu in Wakayama Prefecture. According to the Nihon Shoki, Jinmu receives a good omen from the great gods Kumano, a mysterious local deity. In the Kojiki, the sign is a present from Amaterasu herself. Regardless of who sent it, the omens are positive, so the Amatsukami army moves inland. They travel through the mountains of the Kii Peninsula, following the ancient pilgrimage route. The present UNESCO World Heritage Site, known as Kumano Kodo.
Really hate this pizza cutter.
The Kojiki accounts of Jinmu's conquest after this point is almost mercifully brief. The prince travels up through the mountain into the Nara Basin, where he engages Naganute Biko's forces at Mount Kageyama. This low mountain, about 152 meters or 500 foot tall, barely more than a hill, is nonetheless one of the three sacred mountains of Yamato. Jimmu defeats Nagasunebiko soundly on its slopes. The Nihon Shoki account is much more detailed. It focuses on each of the Nagasunebiko's subordinates and how Jimmu and his forces defeat them. These stories feature some themes that will be repeated later, such as the existence of twin adversaries, one of whom turns out to be good and the other evil. Soon after entering Yamato, Jimmu encounters a pair of brothers named Shiki and Otoshiki. Both brothers agree to swear allegiance to him at Ishiki's great. Otoshiki comes to Jimmu in secret, telling him that Ishiki has placed a rock trap in the ceiling at the hall and plans to crush the prince to death during the ceremony. Jimmu sends his forces to investigate. In the ensuing battle, Ishiki accidentally triggers his own traps and crushes himself to death. Otoshiki swears allegiance. Otoshiki swears allegiance in good faith and becomes one of Jimmu's generals. In another trope that will be repeated further down the line, Nihon Shoki records that Jimmu wins a victory through deceit via cross-dressing. Because cross-dressing is very common in ancient history. He tries to scout out Mount Kageyama, but finds it blocked by Nagasunebiko's forces. The prince then has Shiotsuchi and Otoshiki dress in the clothes of an old woman and an old man. Thus disguised, the two proceed to the mountain, claiming to be pilgrims wishing to pray to its god. The enemy troop laugh uproariously at how impoverished the pair appear, and let them through. Once past the blockade, Shitotsuchi and Otoshiki steal holy clay from the mountain and return to Jimmu. Jimmu shapes the clay into a bowl, which he then uses to divine the conditions of his victory. In both versions, the entry into Yamato culminates with the battle atop Mount Kageyama. Nagasunebiko's forces are scattered across its flat, wide summit, while Jimmu's army has to attack straight up from the surrounding plains. The prince himself leads the attack and defeats the Tsuchiguma with almost no casualties. In both versions, he follows up his victory with several songs. Most of them are boastful claims about his skill with the sword and the speed of Nagasunebiko's defeat, known as Kumewita. They were thought to be ritual songs sung by specific clans serving the imperial family. One example is the song below, sung by Jimmu immediately upon killing Nagasunebiko. The song goes as follows. Fierce and furious, lads of the fighters, in the field of foxtail millet thrives. The sinking stalk of chive hunt for its roots, seek out its shoots, spike and put an end to it. The first emperor of Japan is enthroned on the first day of the new year following the pacification of Yamato. He builds a palace in the northern slopes of Mount Unebi, another of the three sacred mountains of Yamato. The modern Kashihara Shrine in Kashihara, Nara Prefecture, was built over what is supposedly the exact spot of Jimmu's palace. Jimmu's first act as emperor is to search for an appropriate wife. Although he had married once before in Himuka, he now needs someone with a pedigree worthy of Amaterasu's descendant. Rumors come to him of a beautiful woman, a granddaughter of a local lord, who was conceived through mysterious means. Some decades ago, the lord's daughter was defecating in a river that flowed from Mount Niwa, another sacred mountain in the Nara Basin, although not one of the three sacred mountains. The woman was seen by the god of the mountain, a deity called Monoshinorushi. Monoshinorushi was a descendant of Takamimushi. Mifusui, one of the original gods of the first creation, and therefore among the highest ranks of the Amatsukami. Monoshiro Nushi fell for the beautiful woman. He turned himself into a red arrow, which then flew down the stream and lodged in the woman's genitals. In shock, she stood up, whereupon he turned into a beautiful man and professed his love for her. The child born from that union, the girl, names Hime Tatara Isuzuhime, is extremely beautiful. She also bears the bloodline of a pure Amatsukami, and therefore would be a perfect match for the new emperor. Jimmu sends messengers to verify her beauty and lineage, and they return with proof. He then courts and marries her, beginning the lineage of emperors that supposedly continues in Japan to this day. Jimmu ruled for 76 years until either 160 or 170, until 100, either 160 or 170 years old, depending on the chronicle. After his death, he is laid to rest in the first imperial mausoleum. This is supposedly a tomb mound at the foot of Mount Unebi near his palace. Interestingly enough, there is no ancient tomb mound anywhere near the area where the chronicles record his burial, though one was constructed in the late 19th century as part of the state Shinto project that ended with the Second World War. The lack of a tomb for Jimmu was bewildering to pre-modern authors. Some question whether the first emperor of Japan truly died, others whether he was real at all, a position held by most modern scholars. Certainly, Jimmu was never worshipped in the same way as his ancestors or other kami, and his shrines dedicated to him are also modern phenomena, just like his tomb mound. The first emperor is not a god like his ancestors, and with his death their age comes to a final close. Whether the future deeds of the imperial line, whether adventure they have, or whatever adventures they have or powers they present, ultimately they belong to the human realm alone, and it is to this realm that we next turn our attention. And with next stream, I shall read a new chapter.